In July of 1518, a woman named Frau Troffea walked out of her home in Strasbourg, stepped onto the cobblestones, and began to dance. There was no music, no festival, no reason anyone could name. Witnesses described her face as blank, even anguished. The movements were violent and compulsive, as if her body was doing something her mind was not agreeing to. She danced through the first day and collapsed at night from exhaustion. After a few hours of sleep, she got up and started again. By the fourth day, her feet had split open, and she was still moving, pivoting on the raw meat of her own soles. This is documented history. It was written down carefully by the physicians and city clerks who watched it happen and could not explain it. 500 years later, we are still looking for the cause. Within 1 week, Frau Troffea had 34 companions. Within a month, the number passed 400. But the human heart is not built for this. Continuous exertion in the July heat pushes the cardiovascular system to its absolute limit. According to one chronicle, at the height of the outbreak, the dancing was killing around 15 people a day. Strokes, heart attacks, sheer exhaustion. Modern historians dispute that specific figure, noting it may have been an exaggeration by later writers. But the core fact remains documented by multiple independent sources. For 2 months, hundreds of citizens moved against their own will, past the point of injury, and no one could make it stop. The city's leaders consulted their physicians. They ruled out the supernatural. No demons, no possession. They diagnosed the dancers with hot blood, believing the body had overheated and needed to burn off the excess energy. Their solution was to let the afflicted dance it out of their system. The city cleared out 2 guild halls and built a wooden stage in the square. They hired pipers and drummers to keep the rhythm going, and even paid professional dancers to move alongside the sick. The intervention was a catastrophe. The music provided a pulse. The public spectacle drew more people in, spreading the compulsion further. What began with 30 dancers grew into a citywide plague. The institutional desire to impose a logical cure on an irrational panic is what ultimately made the outbreak lethal. Modern analysis has struggled to find a biological culprit. The most common theory points to accidental poisoning. Ergot is a fungus that grows on damp rye. It contains chemical compounds from which LSD was later synthesized, causing hallucinations and convulsions. However, ergot poisoning constricts blood flow to the limbs. It makes movement agonizing, making it physically impossible to dance for days on end. It also fails to explain why the outbreak spread through sight.
Other theories suggest a religious cult, but historical records describe the victims as terrified and desperate to stop. Poison does not spread by watching an infected person. Cults require a willing participant. This was a contagion of the mind, passing through the simple act of observation. Historians now point to a terrifying diagnosis: mass psychogenic illness. Under extreme, sustained stress, real physical symptoms can spread through a population like a virus. There is no biological pathogen, only fear moving from body to body. Strasbourg in 1518 was a pressure cooker. The region was decimated by famine. Smallpox and syphilis were rampant. The population was starving and broken. They were also primed by a regional legend that a saint named Vies could curse the wicked by forcing them to dance uncontrollably. When Frau Troffea began to move, that shared cultural fear became the catalyst. The terror became the symptom, and the symptom became the outbreak. The dancing plague ended in September. The authorities dismantled the stages and silenced the musicians. Survivors were taken to a shrine to pray. The compulsion faded, and the streets went quiet. We often treat this as a medieval curiosity, but mass psychogenic illness is documented in the modern world. It happens today in schools and factories. Groups of people develop real, debilitating physical twitches and fainting spells with no physical cause. Stress alone triggers the hardware. The biological mechanism that emptied those bodies into the streets of Strasbourg is still inside us. File number 001 remains open.
Subscribe for chilling crime and horror stories.